63 minutes before sunrise, Olivia Wren stood in a camel coat on Mercer Block and pressed a white envelope with $300 into the hand of a single mother in a grease-marked denim jacket, while the little girl beside her watched two security men carry their lives toward the curb. Someone by the leasing office laughed when Olivia said, with the polished patience of a person accustomed to being obeyed, 48 hours was already generous, Miss Torres. Take the relocation money, and don't make this difficult in front of your daughter. Elena Torres did not argue. She crouched, tied the looses on Luna's red sneaker, and tucked the envelope into her tool bag as if it were another receipt. Only later that afternoon, when a title defect buried under 114 years of filings began tearing through a $28 million redevelopment, would Olivia understand the exhausted woman she had dismissed was the only person in Calder who knew Mercer Block well enough to take it from her. Stay with this, because the $300 was the cheapest mistake Olivia Wren would ever make. Before we dive further, tell us where you are watching from. And if this story touches your heart, please share it with your beloved ones and subscribe to this channel. Mercer Block sat on 1.8 acres in Calder's Isold Textile District, a tired rectangle of 6 brick buildings bordered by Halston, Reed, Merrick, and Vale streets. City planners called it underutilized, investors called it distressed. The people who lived there called it home because rent was low enough for a locksmith, 2 sisters who ran a bakery, a seamstress, a barber, and a night shift single mother with a 6-year-old daughter to remain where their parents had once worked. There were 22 apartments above 11 storefronts, 1 shuttered loading bay, 1 narrow service lane, and a steam tunnel beneath the middle parcels that no current map described correctly. Olivia Wren, 42, had spent 16 months buying almost all of it through Wren Urban, the development company she had built into a serious name. She had converted mills, rail yards, and warehouses into polished profitability. She was competent, disciplined, and dangerously certain. Her investors wanted Mercer Block cleared and rebranded as Mercer Quarter before the end of Q3. $87 million in commitments depended on clean title, vacant possession, and a fast handoff to construction. In her presentation decks, the current residents appeared as pale blocks labeled transitional occupancy. She did not think of herself as cruel. She thought of herself as efficient. Elena Torres, 34, lived in apartment 3B over Marquez Laundry with her daughter Luna and Luna's rabbit, Bolt, whose left ear had been sewn back on 3 times with blue thread. Elena worked boiler calls and emergency repairs for Calder Mechanical. To strangers, she looked like exactly what life had turned her into from the outside. Old boots, split knuckles, hair pinned with a carpenter's pencil, eyes so tired they seemed to belong to a person several years older. What strangers never saw were the notebooks under her bed filled with parcel, numbers, easement sketches, pressure readings, tax sale dates, and diagrams of repairs all over Calder. They did not see how her mind arranged systems, steam, drainage, title, human motive. To Elena, structure was structure. Before the grease-stained jacket and the overnight repair calls, there had been another life. Elena and her husband, Mateo Torres, had built a quiet consulting practice that handled pre-acquisition due diligence for lenders and redevelopment groups. Mateo charmed rooms. Elena solved them. Her specialty was fractured ownership, utility corridors, municipal liens, hidden access rights, and old industrial paperwork that made impatient people careless. Then Mateo died when a gravel truck crossed a median at 541 on a rain-dark bypass. Luna was 3. The firm collapsed inside half a year. Clients stopped returning calls once the warm, easy husband was gone, and the silent, precise widow remained. Debt arrived. Grief settled. Elena sold what she could, took maintenance work, and kept going because a child still needed breakfast. At home, she moved with the same economy she carried into machine rooms. The apartment was small, drafty, and orderly. Elena kept screws in a magnetic tray on top of the refrigerator. Luna kept her drawings in a yellow accordion folder labeled important stuff in careful first-grade capitals. The night before the eviction, Elena came home at 11:18, smelling faintly of cutting oil, warmed tomato soup, and sat cross-legged on the floor while Luna showed her a drawing of their building. Bolt had his own square in the picture. He watches the door when I'm at school, Luna explained, so the apartment doesn't feel by itself. Elena touched the corner of the page. Good assignment, she asked. Luna shook her head. Good apartment. Olivia's certainty came from repetition. She believed speed was intelligence, and hesitation was weakness. When she first toured Mercer Block in heels narrow enough to make the broken concrete look offensive, she paused outside Marquez Laundry just long enough to ask whether the woman carrying 2 tool buckets was staff or tenant. Both, maybe, her project director said. Single mom, Unit 3B. Olivia glanced at Elena's stained jacket, at Luna coloring nearby on an upside-down milk crate, and filed them away under solvable. She never asked a second question. Her pressure was real. Ren Urban had overextended on 2 simultaneous projects. Mercer Quarter needed to close cleanly, or Hunter Pike, a mezzanine lender who specialized in helping developers right up to the moment he could own them, would force covenants Olivia had spent 14 years avoiding. Pike liked leverage. He liked public weakness. Olivia intended never to show him either. So when council warned that the last occupied units in Building C complicated sequencing for insurance and remediation, she ordered accelerated removal. No notices were posted. Relocation checks were prepared. Security was retained. Compliance became theater. The morning of the dismissal smelled like cold rain, diesel, and yeast from the bakery ovens. Elena had just finished swapping a failed condensate pump when she saw 2 men in charcoal jackets outside her building with clipboards and a dolly. Luna, zipped into a pink coat 1 size too big, held Bolt by the ear and looked up at the strangers with the solemn concentration children reserve for adults making bad decisions. Mrs. Alvarez from the bakery stood in her doorway with flour on both forearms. Mr. Keene the locksmith watched from his stool. Nobody mistook what was happening. Olivia arrived at 6:57 in a black SUV and crossed the wet sidewalk without umbrella or hurry. Her project manager trailed behind with forms. Miss Torres, Olivia said. As if resuming a conversation Elena had never agreed to begin. We posted notice 48 hours ago. Hazard abatement starts today. We've authorized $300 in immediate relocation assistance. The envelope was thick with new bills. Elena looked at the paper clipped to the front. Wrong municipal code, no inspector signature, improper execution. She saw the defect in a second. She also saw Luna's hand tighten around Bolt's stitched ear. You can't throw us away? Luna said, not loudly. One of the security men looked down. Olivia did not. No one is throwing anyone away, she said. We're moving a process forward. Please don't make this emotional. People laughed then. Not cruelly. Worse, uneasily. Elena felt Luna press against her knee. She did not raise her voice. She bent down, readed Luna's sneaker, and asked, Coat zipped? Luna nodded. Alyssa stood, took the envelope, and said to Olivia, Who signed the steam access survey for Block C? Olivia blinked. Excuse me, who signed it? Elena repeated. Olivia's project manager frowned at his clipboard. He did not know. Olivia said, My council handles survey review. You need to vacate. Elena nodded once. All right. She lifted her tool bag, took Luna's hand, and stepped aside so the men with the dolly could carry out the first plastic storage bin. The warning had been offered. That was the part Olivia would later replay. By 9:12, Elena and Luna sat in a back booth at Marisol's diner with 2 grilled cheese sandwiches cut into triangles and Bolt propped against the sugar caddy like a witness. The envelope lay unopened beside Elena's coffee. Luna watched her mother the way children watch weather. Are we homeless now? She asked. For today, we're in between places, Elena said. Bolt doesn't like in between. No, Elena said. Neither do I. Dominic Velez arrived 7 minutes later carrying spare keys and the strained guilt of a decent man who had made himself useful to the wrong people too often. Dominic was 46, broad-shouldered, and permanently ringed with oil at the nails. My cousin's old unit on Hester is empty, he said. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Heat works. Windows are ugly. Thank you. He glanced at the envelope. You gonna cash that? Elena opened it, counted the bills once. and separated them into 3 neat stacks. 100 for the moving truck, 100 for certified file pulls, 100 for Luna's school week if this drags. Dominic stared. File pulls for what? Alina wrote 4 parcel numbers and a deed book citation on a napkin. Did they start demolition in the loading bay? Not yet. Then they still think they own continuous access. Dominic knew that tone. What did they miss? Elena looked at Luna feeding a corner of sandwich to Bolt. How fast can you get me into the county archive room before noon? At 10. Zo 6 Olivia sat on the 38th floor of Calder Tower, beneath a live render of Mercer Quarter glowing across 3 screens. Her CFO was walking through timing when Madison Reeve entered without knocking. Madison, 31, exacting and too competent to waste alarm, carried a Redwell folder. There's a problem with parcel 11C, she said. Olivia barely looked up. Then solve it. Madison placed the printout on the table. Commonwealth National found a severed utility and access easement recorded in 1989 after a receivership. It burdens multiple Mercer parcels, including the service lane and loading bay. The dominant rights are not in Ren Urban's name. Silence changed shape in the room. Whose name? Olivia asked. That's the problem. The rights were assigned into a dormant LLC and then tied through a preservation covenant that was misindexed for 32 years. We're still tracing the current holder. How much does it delay us? Best case, 10 days, more likely 3 weeks. If the holder objects to excavation in the tunnel corridor, funding can be suspended. At the county recorder's sub-basement, Elijah Boone looked up from a gray table scarred by decades of elbows and stamped forms and recognized Elena immediately. He was 58, spare as wire, with glasses riding low on his nose. Look who remembered where the bones are buried, he said. Book 3881, page 204, Elena replied. Then every receiver filing for Mercer Industrial Holdings between 1987 and 1991. Anything cross-indexed under steam, lane maintenance, or subsurface access. Elijah glanced at Luna, asleep against Elena's shoulder with Bolt crushed under her chin. You always did know when a building was lying. By 1147, Elena had 5 certified copies, 3 plats and proof. In 1989, during bankruptcy receivership, Mercer Industrial Holdings had split the block's subsurface steam corridor and service access from fee ownership to satisfy a pension settlement owed to maintenance workers. Those rights had been parked in a shell entity, Calder Utility Preservation LLC, then tied by covenant to whichever occupant maintained the corridor, lane drains, and emergency shutoff access in continuous service. Most buyers missed it because the cross-index number had been transposed. Most lawyers missed it because they trusted digital abstracts. Elena's had seen it years ago when she and Mateo were still doing diligence for lenders. She tapped a line halfway down one certified page. It identified the current maintenance holder by emergency occupancy certification after an old boiler failure. The named occupant maintainer was Elena Torres, apartment 3B, acting building custodian because the absentee owner could not be located. The order had never been properly superseded. Elijah let out a low breath. You're holding dominant access over the middle of Mercer Block. Credential, Elena said. Still counts, only if the corridor is intact. Is it? She thought of survey paint around the loading bay and the missing steam map. Not if they cut where they want to cut. At 12:08, Elena called the number on the defective relocation form and left a 23-second message for Ren Urban Legal. Your title is not clean. Your access rights are defective. Do not disturb the steam corridor until a licensed pressure isolation review is completed. Confirm against the 1989 receivership rider recorded off Book 3881. Page 204. I'll be available until 4. She gave no explanation. At 12:41, the message reached Madison, who listened twice. Then once more on speaker in Olivia's office. Madison heard it first for what it was. Not a bluff. Not outrage, but professional courtesy from someone who expected to be ignored. She knows the file, Madison said. Olivia stood at the window, with one hand against the glass. Get her in here. We may want to approach carefully. She was a tenant. Madison looked at her. No, I think she was a warning label. By then, Elena had moved Luna and 2 duffel bags into Dominic's cousin's vacant unit. On Hester Street, the apartment smelled of radiator heat and old dust. The couch leaned left. There were exactly 4 plates. Luna put Bolt on the windowsill, took one slow turn in the unfamiliar room, and asked the question Elena had dreaded all day. Did we do something wrong? No. Then why did that lady make us leave? Because power often mistakes convenience for truth, Elena thought. Because polished people learn to treat worn things as disposable. None of that belonged to a child. So she sat on the floor, spread out Luna's drawings until the room looked briefly claimed, and said, "Some people think ownership is the same as understanding. It isn't." Luna considered. Like when kids think the fastest reader is the smartest one. Exactly like that. Luna adjusted Bolt against the baseboard. "You know buildings better than mean ladies know buildings." Elena almost laughed. "Sometimes." "No," Luna said, "always. You just don't tell people." That was the line Elena carried with her into the 3 meeting at Wren Urban. The conference room smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and expensive wool. Elena arrived in the same denim jacket because she owned nothing suitable for other people's remorse. Luna sat in reception with Dominic, coloring while Bolt guarded a cup of crayons. Madison greeted Elena with respectful caution. Olivia remained standing. "We understand there may have been a filing issue," Olivia began. "There are 4, Elena said. Madison's mouth twitched. Olivia said, "Outline them." Elena placed the certified copies on the table in order. "Your abstract missed the cross-index transposition. Your survey assumes continuous service lane ownership where only burdened use exists. Your relocation notice cites the wrong code and lacks municipal execution. And if you open the slab at the loading bay before isolating the live crossover under Building B, you risk flashing a 70-pound steam line rerouted after the 1978 boiler failure." Madison started taking notes by hand. Olivia's expression remained controlled, but the stillness changed. "How do you know about the reroute? Elbow marks in the old brick chase. Pressure differential between B and C every winter. There's also a patched valve housing under the laundry floor if you know where to look. You're a maintenance contractor, among other things." For the first time, Olivia looked at her, not at the jacket or the cheap boots, but at the person inside them. She saw intelligence then, and something harder for people like Olivia to absorb. Restraint that did not require recognition to remain intact. "What do you want?" she asked. "Today," Elena said, "I want you not to rupture a live line under occupied buildings." "That's not what I meant." "I know." Elena tapped the maintenance covenant. "The corridor rights vest with continuous maintenance and occupancy compliance. You displace the current holder without curing the obligation. If your lenders find that before you do, Hunter Pike will smell blood across 3 zip codes." Madison looked up sharply. "You know Pike?" Elena had spent 6 years with Mateo rescuing clients from men like Hunter Pike. Pike remembered Mateo. Men like him rarely remembered the quiet partner. "I know the structure of his contracts," Elena said. Olivia asked again, more carefully, "What do you want?" "My neighbors moved legally and with dignity. Real relocation numbers, not insult checks. No demolition until the corridor is mapped and isolated. And copies of every current title commitment and survey revision on Mercer Block." "That is not a small request," Olivia said. "No," Elena said. "Your error isn't small." Madison closed her notebook. "She's right." Olivia glanced at her. "You work for me. I work for the transaction to survive." Something in Olivia gave way then. Not pride, elevation. She sat down. "If I give you the files," she said, "what are you offering in return?" Elena looked at the papers, the clean table, the invisible distance between money and understanding. "An opportunity to ask the right questions before the city. Your lenders, and Hunter Pike asked them for you." Madison sent 612 pages within the hour. That night, Elena reviewed them at a weak kitchen bulb after Luna fell asleep on the borrowed couch with Bolt under her arm. Survey overlays, assignment chains, environmental exhibits, insurance carve-outs. She marked defects in blue and actual threats in red. By 11:36, she knew the problem was larger than the corridor. Wren Urban had built its financing stack on the assumption Mercer Block was a single coherent assemblage. It was not. 3 parcels were tied by old reciprocal service rights. 2 storefronts had protected tenancy options hidden in lease extensions. 1 roofline wall straddled a property line by 7.5 inches, and the biggest danger sat inside a sealed appendix from Pike Capital. If Mercer failed to deliver vacant possession and clean title by Friday at 5 p.m., Pike could trigger a step-in remedy and assume control of all pledged parcels at a discount formula, so predatory it was almost theatrical. Elena read that paragraph twice, then opened a metal box she had not touched in nearly a year. Inside were Mateo's fountain pen, a photo strip from their first courthouse Christmas party, and a thin folder labeled Mercer Hold. It contained their old risk memo and something Mateo had added without telling her. A drafted purchase option on the dormant Calder Utility Preservation LLC, half negotiated years earlier with the Pench Committee before their client walked away. Beside one trustee's name, Mateo had written, "Call if block ever comes apart." Elena sat very still. Some grief settles like dust, some waits in working condition. The next morning she took Luna to school at 7:43. At the door Luna asked, "Are we fixing the bad ladies building?" "I'm deciding whether it deserves fixing," Elena said. "That's fair," Luna replied. By 8:30 Elena was sitting in a bungalow in South Calder with Samuel Dresner, 81, retired pension trustee, bird feeders outside the window, and a blood pressure cuff on the coffee table. Samuel remembered Mateo immediately and Elena a beat later, which told her everything she needed to know about business memory. Then he apologized before she had to ask him to. Samuel still controlled advisory authority over the dormant LLCs because no final disposition had ever closed. Successor trustees had died. The rights had seemed useless, so no one had bothered to clean the paperwork. Elena explained in 8 precise minutes why they were no longer useless. Samuel listened, opened a filing cabinet, and removed a notarized contingent assignment packet dated 9 years earlier. "Mateo thought someone would get greedy one day," he said. "He wanted a clean path if that happened, said you'd know what to do with it." Elena took the packet and felt, for the first time in years, not hope exactly but alignment. He usually did his worrying in complete sentences. Samuel smiled. Mateo required 30% mixed income housing. Profit needed memory too. That sounded like Mateo. It also sounded like something Elena could live with. At Ren Urban, the day was deteriorating by measurable degrees. Title insurers widened exceptions. The city requested updated tunnel maps. Pike Capital sent a routine clarification email that made Olivia's general counsel pale. Madison entered Olivia's office at 10:14 and said, "If Pike steps in, you're not saving Mercer, you're losing the company." Olivia had slept 2 hours. "Can Elena Torres fix it?" Madison answered carefully. "She can understand it. Fixing it may require rights we don't have." Olivia stared at the skyline and remembered the child saying, "You can't throw us away." There are sentences that return later with different weight. That was one. Elena moved in exact sequence. At 11:02, she filed notice asserting maintenance holder rights pending title cure. At 11:47, she recorded Samuel Dresner's assignment into Calder Utility Preservation LLC. At 12:15, she met 2 Mercer shop owners and Naomi Hart, a community banker who had known Elena years earlier from a portfolio workout and still trusted the quiet precision in her voice. On a diner placemat, Elena laid out the structure. Ren Urban would miss deadline. Pike would try to force a fire sale. If a local consortium bought the distressed notes at the right moment and paired them with the utility rights and tenant options, they could control Mercer legally, preserve the block, and keep predatory capital out. Naomi listened without interrupting. "How much?" she asked. 7.2 to get control, 11.4 to stabilize, more later to rebuild properly. "And why you?" "Because I know where every expensive mistake is buried." Naomi studied her. "That wasn't arrogance." "No." "Good," Naomi said. "Arrogance underwrites badly. Precision I can work with." By late afternoon, the quiet proof had become impossible to ignore. Dominic and a city steam inspector followed Elena through Mercer basements while she indicated, from patched brick and temperature variation alone, the real reroute of the live crossover. When the inspector opened the hatch, she indicated and found the valve housing exactly where she said it would. He scratched his forehead and asked, "Who trained you?" "Mostly consequences," Elena said. Crew foreman began calling her mom without irony. The bakery sisters sent over coffee in paper cups. Mr. Keene watched from his stool and said to no one in particular, "That one's not getting louder because she doesn't need to." Olivia arrived in a charcoal coat and found Elena knee-deep in the service corridor, explaining why a pressure drop proved there was an undocumented branch line under Parcel 10A. Men who answered Olivia's emails in minutes were listening to Elena like students. More than the technical facts, that unsettled Olivia. Competence reorganizes rooms. It had already done so here. "Elena," Olivia said when the inspector moved away, "can we speak privately?" "We're already in a tunnel, Olivia. This is private enough." It was the first time Elena used her first name, not intimate, precise. Olivia glanced at the open valve housing. "Madison says Pike made a move." "He did. Can you stop him?" Elena looked at the iron wheel, then at Olivia. "Not for you." The honesty landed without decoration. Olivia absorbed it. "For the block, then. That depends on whether you can tell the difference." At 4:58, Hunter Pike stepped onto Mercer Block in a navy overcoat and polished shoes that disliked weather. He was 50, silver-haired, broad-faced, with the genial brutality of men who mistake appetite for talent. He shook Olivia's hand as if cameras were already present. "Tough week," he said pleasantly. "You don't have control yet," Olivia replied. "Not yet," Pike agreed. Then he noticed Elena standing near the bakery doorway with Luna beside her. Luna had just come from school and still wore her backpack printed with planets. Bolt peered from the side pocket. Pike's eyes passed over Elena once, dismissively, then returned. "Tors," he said, "Mateo's wife." Elena said nothing. Pike smiled. "I remember the memo. You two killed a very profitable acquisition for me." "It was 2018, Elena said. Dominic looked down to hide a grin. Pike spread his hands. "No hard feelings. Looks like weather blew hard on you too." His glance flicked toward Luna, the old jacket, the visible shape of temporary circumstances. "If you're holding nuisance rights, I'll buy them. Save everyone a week." Elena's face did not move. "You don't buy what you don't understand. Everything gets a number." Luna looked up at him and said in the clear, devastating voice children reserve for truth, "My mom doesn't lose. She just gets quiet first." Nobody spoke for a moment after that. The discovery became public the next morning when Naomi Hart's bank, together with 3 local investors and Calder Utility Preservation LLC, acquired Pike's first loss notes before he expected them to trade. Elena had anticipated his leverage model exactly. Pike liked to frighten before he priced. Naomi moved before fear settled. By noon, the city, the title insurer, and Ren Urban's lenders understood the new structure. Elena Torres controlled the critical utility and access rights, held enforceable maintenance continuity, and had aligned with a consortium ready to purchase the distressed debt tied to Mercer Block if Ren Urban defaulted. Olivia learned this from a 1-page summary Madison placed in front of her at 12:17. The last line read, "If Ren Urban cannot cure by deadline, control transfers through note enforcement. Operational lead proposed. Elena Torres." Olivia read it twice. "She bought the block?" "Not yet," Madison said. "What does she have?" "Enough. Friday passed its 5 p.m. deadline without cure. Ren Urban could not deliver vacant possession because Elena had blocked unlawful displacement. It could not clear title because the corridor rights required negotiated assignment. It could not outmaneuver Pike because Naomi's consortium had already taken the vulnerable debt slice. The first domino did not fall dramatically. A notice hit inboxes. Covenants triggered. Conference bridges opened. 3 signatures became 7, then 13. By 8:40, after a sequence of defaults, workouts, and note purchases executed with surgical calm, Mercer Block belonged not to Ren Urban or Pike Capital, but to Mercer Preservation Partners, managing member Elena Torres. She returned the next morning at 7:11, with Luna on one side, Bolt under Luna's arm, Dominic carrying a thermos, Naomi carrying banker's fatigue, and a locksmith bag Mr. Keene insisted she borrow for symbolism he pretended not to believe in. Rain had washed the sidewalks clean overnight. The old brick looked darker, steadier. Olivia was already there. She stood outside the former leasing office without an entourage. No SUV, no project manager. Just a woman in a navy coat who appeared for the first time proportionate to events. Tenants watched from windows and doorways, not cheering, not yet trusting endings. They had lived through too many announcements. Olivia spoke first. Madison explained the final documents. Elena nodded. You own Mercer Block. Through the partnership, yes. Olivia looked at the buildings she had nearly converted into a polished version of forgetting. I misjudged what I was looking at. Elena shifted Bolt's ear away from a zipper so Luna would not tug the seam loose. Yes, she said. Olivia exhaled once. I also humiliated you publicly. In front of your daughter, I was wrong, completely. The block went quiet enough to hear a truck changing gears on Reed Street. Elena studied her. People expected revenge to look loud. Often it looked like accuracy. You asked the right questions eventually, she said. That counts. Olivia's eyes lowered for a second, then returned. Is there anything due now? There it was. Not whether Elena could punish her, but whether dignity in one person could make room for repair in another without shrinking. Elena said, call off every defective relocation notice. Release tenant files to Madison for proper cure packages, and tell your board in writing that no future project under your name will classify occupied homes as transitional units before speaking to the people inside them. Olivia nodded once. Done. The climax when it came was technical rather than theatrical. By noon, Elena had coordinated a controlled shutdown across the live steam crossover, verified the undocumented branch line, and prevented a rupture that would have flooded 3 basements with superheated condensate at 42 psi. City inspectors signed revised safety orders. Naomi finalized bridge financing. Dominic organized slab stabilization for the laundry. The bakery sisters cried, only when Elena told them their lease would be converted into a protected long-term commercial tenancy with capped increases. Mr. Keene polished his magnifying visor and said, thought I'd die in this chair. Nice not to be priced out of it first. Pike tried one final maneuver through an injunction threat. But Elena had anticipated the forum, the timing, and the defect in his standing. Madison argued the response herself from a folder Elena had tabbed in advance. The judge denied emergency relief before dinner. Necessity had a particular advantage. It made people efficient. That evening, after 12 hours of signatures, inspections, pressure checks, and practical miracles, Elena unlocked a vacant second-floor unit in Building A that Mercer Preservation Partners intended to hold for transitional family housing during renovations. For now, it would be theirs, not because she had won something theatrical, because there was work to do, and it was close to the systems she trusted. The apartment needed paint. The kitchen floor sloped enough to send a marble toward the stove in 4. 2 seconds, the windows were tall and drafty. To Luna, it looked like a castle with plumbing. She ran from room to room with Bolt stretched out like a survey flag. This can be my reading corner, she said. And this can be where we keep blankets that are only for storms. Storm blankets are a good idea, Elena said. Luna came back and wrapped both arms around her waist. Do we get to stay? Elena rested her chin on the top of Luna's head. Through the window she could see Mercer Block settling into evening. Bakery lights against wet glass. Dominic leaning on a van door, Mr. Keene locking up Olivia across the street, talking to Madison with the posture of a person relearning consequence. Yes, Elena said. We get to stay. Because you knew the secret? Luna asked. Elena thought about the word, secret, as if her life had been hidden on purpose, rather than overlooked because it arrived in worn denim, with a child and a tool bag. Because I paid attention, she said. Luna accepted that. Children often do. She put Bolt on the windowsill to watch the block, then placed her yellow accordion folder in the top drawer of the kitchen buffet, as if founding an archive. Later, after Luna fell asleep on a mattress on the floor with one hand resting on Bolt's stitched ear, Elena stood alone in the kitchen and opened the window 2 inches. Night air moved in, carrying yeast, rain, and the faint mineral warmth of newly corrected steam. She took Mateo's fountain pen from her pocket and set it in the drawer beside Luna's important stuff folder. Not finished exactly. Nothing worth keeping ever was, but aligned again. There was a knock just before 10. Olivia stood in the hallway holding a flat bakery box. No coat now, no armor except fatigue. Mrs. Alceres said you forgot to eat, she said. Elena took the box. Inside were 4 guava pastries dusted with sugar. Thank you. Olivia glanced past her toward the sleeping child, the mattress, the unpacked dishes. For what it's worth, she said. I built my life on being the person who saw value first. I was proud of that. Turns out I learned to price things faster than I learned to see them. Elena leaned against the doorframe. Those aren't the same skill. No, Olivia said. I know that now. She left without asking for absolution. That counted too. Weeks passed. Mercer Block did not become Mercer Quarter. The brushed metal sign mock-ups disappeared. In their place came scaffold schedules, tenant meetings, utility reroutes, and a preservation plan with 34% of the residential units protected for mixed income occupancy over 10 years. Naomi handled financing. Madison resigned from Ren Urban 3 days after the transfer and joined Mercer's Preservation Partners as outside counsel because she preferred complicated truth to elegant denial. Dominic became operations director and finally drew the salary Elena had been too tired to demand for anyone, including herself. Olivia sold 2 non-core assets, stabilized what remained of her company, and issued a policy requiring occupant interviews before acquisition summaries. It was not redemption. It was evidence of learning. The block changed slowly, which is how durable things usually do. The laundromat got a level floor. The bakery repaired its hood vent. The locksmith kept his original sign. The old loading bay became a shared workshop with tool lockers and a homework table in the corner where neighborhood kids could sit while parents closed registers. Luna claimed the shortest stool and informed everyone that Bolt was not a toy but regional management. Nobody disagreed. One Sunday in October, 112 days after the envelope on the sidewalk, Elena sat on the rebuilt rear steps with coffee cooling in her hands, while Luna drew buildings in her yellow folder. The morning was clear. Brick held sunlight in wide, warm plains. Somewhere down the block, a socket wrench clicked in patient intervals. Dominic was arguing with a delivery driver about copper fittings. Mrs. Alvarez laughed through an open window. It sounded like a neighborhood still deciding to trust its own future. Luna looked up. Mama? In the picture. Should I draw you in the window or on the street? Elena considered. Which is more accurate? Both, Luna said. Because you're the boss, but you're also the fixer. Elena looked out over the block she had not chased so much as understood well enough to keep. The iron rails Dominic had repainted, the frames waiting for glaze. The bakery awning mended rather than replaced. Ownership felt less like possession than responsibility measured in details. Pressure ratings, lease clauses, drain pitch, rent ceilings, school routes. Who got to remain visible when money arrived? Street, Elena said at last. Draw me on the street. Luna nodded and returned to the page. After a minute, she added, in the offhand tone children use when delivering the line adults will remember for years. Good. That's where people can find you if they need help. Elena lowered her eyes. On the step beside her, Bolt leaned against the coffee mug like a tired foreman. From inside the apartment came the ordinary sounds of a life no longer balanced on other people's convenience, a kettle cooling, floorboards settling, dishes that belonged exactly where they were. Across the block, Olivia passed on foot carrying a folder, saw Elena on the steps, and lifted one hand in a gesture too modest to be performance. Elena returned the nod. Nothing loud, nothing theatrical, just recognition finally placed in the right ledger. Luna held up the finished drawing. The building stood in neat colored lines, bakery awning green, windows bright. A small figure in a denim jacket stood on the sidewalk with a wrench in one hand. In the upper corner, because no child draws only what adults think matters, Bolt sat in a window like a guardian saint with one blue-stitched ear. It looks right, Elena said. And because the day was mild, because the block was still standing, because Luna was safe, because the world had finally been required to learn the difference between appearance and value, without Elena once having to perform triumph for it, Her mouth moved into something small, quiet, and unmistakably a smile, as if warmth itself had decided, for once, to stay a little longer.